My name is Charlie Haffey, and I've been working with Sarah Hannigan and Katie Brown on this work-based learning plan, a vocational data collection system, and it begins with this form. This form is really well laid out. At the very top, there is a key, and the key applies to the part of this form after this administrative portion. Come these 8 questions that are based on a linear scale. And the key tells you that a scale choice of 1 is a low performance and a 5 is a high performance. So here I just entered in some data. I was playing around with this. And at the bottom, there are 2 questions with short essay responses for somebody who wanted to add a little bit of extra information. Then you have the submit button, and the first time somebody hits submit, you are given the choice of having a spreadsheet generated for you. And I would suggest that you do that. You wind up getting this work-based learning plan, vocational data collection responses. The nice thing is then that this spreadsheet is going to be listed right next to the form wherever it is on your Google Drive. And here you can see all this data is fictional, made up by me. Timestamp, job site. I tried to use 4-digit codes here for the students. I needed a little format. Job title, all this stuff is important. And for me, the more important part is getting down here. And here I have question 01, attendance and punctuality, shows up on time, and so on. And you notice that most of that question is hidden underneath column number 2. That's not very important right now. We can either make that more visible later or we can do some formatting. But you'll notice that the first student had a score of 1, the next student 5, and you can read the rest of this data. Okay? There's a huge problem with the way that this form response sheet is set up. And if you go down here to the end, I set up a formula to calculate the average for those 8 linear scale questions. And student number 1, I had an average of 3, and you can see their averages. The problem comes down to after I had the formulas and I copied them down, then I had this 4th student submit a response, and a problem occurs. When the form information is added to the spreadsheet, it is not added onto a row. A row is inserted into the spreadsheet with the information. And what that does is it pushed all these formulas down. And now any data that's added will be added correctly, but there won't be any formulas at the end to give me an average, which means that I'd have to keep going back and fixing that and fixing that. That's not how to do it. So I came up with a solution. I had to do a little bit of homework here, but it was pretty cool. So I came up with this. I came up with a sheet called the output, and you'll notice that these little arrows here mean that column A and B, and then from D to H, those columns are hidden. I can get them back if I want, but I don't really need to see that data. I needed to see the student ID, and then I needed to see the scores for questions 1 through 8. So here, I just typed in 1, and then attend, comma, punctual. And the reason I did that is anybody looking at this would look across these headings, and they would say, oh, question number 6 is the one that deals with speaking skills. And that would be very helpful. All right. I did add on this tab here the key that was on that form, so you could look at this without having to go back. And so here we have student 4051, and all the way over here I have the average, and that worked out well. And I added formulas all the way down here, like 30 rows, and then I added some other submissions, and this is the key right here. In this cell here, I added a formula called query, equals query. Then I went back into the form responses, and I highlighted the entire selection from C2, where the first ID was on 4051, all the way over to the column P, and I went down like 30 rows. So I put that into the query, and when I hit enter, it just populated this whole thing with whatever data was there. Then I added some data, and lo and behold, there were no blank rows. This works out really, really well. I set up the formula here for average so that if the student ID is blank, then there won't be anything in this cell at all. But as soon as some data is crunched into that ID cell and there's other values going across, then the average will percolate into that cell for me. I did a little bit of conditional formatting. So if I just select here and come up here to format, conditional formatting, I set it up so that if a value is equal to 1 on this table, that a light green will show up. And if a value is equal to 5, then this nice little pink color will show up. Right? Then in this column here, I had conditional formatting set up so that if a value is greater than or equal to 3.5, that this blue will show up. And at a glance, you could, for example, let me just close this up. You could look across, all right, student 4051, they're below that threshold of 3, but they do have a 5. So you can get some snapshots here. This student here had an average of 4.3, this student of 4.5. So that tells you something about how these students are doing, and these other scores tell you some things also. I got to give you a warning on this conditional formatting. Some people go crazy with the colors, and what they do is they select it so there's colors all over the place. Looks like a paintball target, and it's the forest and the trees thing. You should be able to look at this and go, oh, there's a blue, there's a red, that tells me something. But if there's a rainbow of colors, it really is not as effective. So as more data gets added, it'll percolate on here. The colors will automatically show up when appropriate. This is not bad. My name's Charlie Haffey for Katie and Sarah. Thanks for watching.